record, everyone, this is a caucus of the Jersey City Municipal Council. Thanks to Snowstorm Juno, we're having this caucus at 5:31 p.m. on Wednesday, January 28th. Not our normal time, not our normal place, and this will be as brief as it can possibly be. We're going to have people waiting for us in the council chambers starting at 6 o'clock. So we're at 5:31. We have councilpersons Gajewski, Baggiano, Yun, Osborne, Coleman, Waterman, and Lavaro. We have out of the room right now, I know they're in the building, council members Ramchal and Rivera.
Okay, everybody just...
As Robert said, we have this is an abbreviated caucus, so we're going to ask people to be pointed with their remarks, and because we do have to get to a regularly scheduled council meeting, which is scheduled to commence at 6 p.m. So we wanted to address those issues that are most burning and pressing with folks, and I think Councilperson Coleman wanted to bring was it 4A? Did other folks have that also? Which, I'm sorry, 4B.
That's the second reading ordinance?
Not 4B. D. Got it.
My question is, we had no feedback or anything from anybody regarding this ordinance for the first reading, and now we're at second reading. I'm getting all these emails from the Chamber of Commerce, telephone calls from Richard Dwyer, PSE&G, and all those kinds of things. And I just want to know if our councilwoman who sat down and reviewed this ordinance, I trust her as my colleague, and I don't think she would put before the council something that was not appropriate. I just wanted an explanation regarding all of this stuff that I have.
Sure, it's gonna, I mean, the reality is it's gonna increase the cost for the utility companies because they're gonna have to repave the roads in the condition that they found them. So if we have a brand new road and it needs to be opened, they want to open it up for repairs, it's gonna have to get restored, you know, as a nice road, instead of the taxpayer having to pay for it. So it is gonna increase their cost. There is a specific, question about some grant monies, that we've talked about tonight. And I think we have a potential amendment that we might introduce, in a couple of weeks I believe will resolve that problem, which will allow folks to come and request a waiver from the city in certain cases, and then they can ask for a waiver, and then if the city feels like it's a strong enough case to get a waiver, they don't have to do it, the waiver could get approved.
So you're saying that for residents, they will have the opportunity to come and request. When you say grant money, I know the grant money is not
Yeah,
going to
that's the
PSE&G.
PSE&G, yeah.
Yeah, I was talking
Yeah.
about PSE&G's.
No, that is grant money. PSE&G has grant money.
Oh, so PSE&G will provide grant money for residents to use?
No, they
Okay.
have grant money. They have grant money to do some projects based off of Hurricane Sandy.
Okay.
And so they are afraid that it would be too expensive to be able to do all of those repairs if they had to restore the roads properly. So what I'm going to propose and what we're meeting about next week is that we come back with an amendment to this, that people can ask for a waiver. So they can request from the city, hey, we have a special circumstance and we believe that we shouldn't have to repave the road, and the city engineering department can take a look at it and can approve it if he deems it the benefit of waiving the ordinance is worth it.
So why are we gonna come back with an amendment when we have the ordinance right here with us?
We can't, I want to go ahead and pass it.
Can I ask a question? Mr. Engineer? My water line goes, and the hydrant is over, the sewer line is across the street, and they have to dig up from my side of the house to across the street. Who pays for that, and who pays for the paving?
Well, currently, each individual or homeowner want to improve their sewer and water. they pay about anywhere $10,000 plus minus to have the service done. And I have to do a research even this morning to figure out if they were required to pay curb to curb. Just say 100 feet, not the entire block. 100 feet of the roadway plus the 30 foot or 40 foot of the street. It will be additional $27,000 to up to $40,000 cost to the homeowner. I think this will be my concern to enforce this requirement to the homeowner.
If it's more than 10 units. 'Cause currently, there's a waiver for 10 units or lower.
What about one family and two family house?
That's less than 10 units.
I know,
But in the case, just, yes, so,
His question is who pays for it if it's...
Well, it has to come from homeowner.
In both cases, in both cases.
Yeah, but what this ordinance is saying is that the homeowner now no longer just has the privilege to do that one strip, they have to do the whole street. Is that, that's what the ordinance is saying, right?
If the property has more than 10 units, and if the road is less than 10 years old. If they don't wanna coordinate with the city.
you know, can I ask this one, can I?
Because the rest of the taxpayers,
Councilman Yun.
Yeah, you know, I understand that your intention is very valuable to protect the city street, but they have some issue. So first things, you know, that any road in Jersey City which has been resurfaced in the last 10 years.
correct.
So now problem is that 10 units apartment is not that big, you know what I'm saying? So now problem is that some units apartment decide to have from the oil burner to, you know, gas burner. But because it's a service line, it's not big enough, so they get up the street. It's those kind of small capital improvement, you know, it's hard to predict. Maybe a couple of years they plan to, but if a street 3 years ago they resurfaced, but now 3 years later I decide to have that. Now there is issue because that road is less than 10 years. This guy have to pay
The whole,
for whole street. Now this is issue.
all of Jersey City
So
streets.
curb to curb, corner to corner. Let me ask you this. So now, linear foot of the corner to corner, how much it costs for?
Well, we estimate, I'd say, if one block is, say, 800 feet,
Yes,
And
you told me
30
that
foot
one
street.
times the linear foot is a street resurfacing is almost $5,000. That's what I understand, you know?
no, because...
Linear foot.
Okay. We pave the street, we bid the job usually citywide,
Mm-hmm.
huge volumes. If you have to have one guy come and do one single street, the cost is
Mm-hmm. Much
tremendous.
higher.
Because number one, you still need the machine, you still need the cop, you still need to do all the medium paving, and a one-day job can become 3 days,
Mm-hmm.
because he cannot finish the backfilling in one day. You have to wait until next day milling,
Mm-hmm.
the next day paving. So this is become a burden to whoever want to develop a small unit, even like a 10.
Yeah.
10 unit, maybe 5-story or one house.
Not even a 5-story, sometimes a 3-story building can be 10 units in my district. I think everybody's a district. So this one bring up the really heavy burden to small property owner and their intention to improve their property from the oil to gas and so on. So it's going to be a nightmare because maybe changing from the oil to gas costs maybe $30,000, $40,000, but actually putting the money to the street can be $50,000, $60,000. So if you tell that any property owner more than 10 units, less than 10, over the 10 units and less than 50 units, if you want to improve the small capital changes gas or electric service line, your cost will be more than $100,000, then it will be nightmare. You know what I'm saying? So
If I can,
we understand your intention, really good, we like to have it, but I think this one, because everything is okay, very good, I'm happy with that, and Councilman Candice was one, but this is the one, a nightmare for the small
So,
property owner.
again, if
let's
we
allow
put,
Councilperson Osborne to respond.
again, so, I have to a little bit disagree with you, because that's still one property owner messing up the road that all of the Jersey City taxpayers paid for. And so what gives an individual property owner, especially when you're talking more than 10 units, we could talk 10 units, you really could say 5 units is wrong, because that's a city asset that all the taxpayers paid for, and now one person gets to mess it up for everybody?
No, it's not to mess it up. No, so.
No, it is, because our roads are a disaster.
Candice, Councilwoman, this is the issue. If they follow the backfill the way you describe, that doesn't require to, to do that curb to curb, corner to corner, because the way she requirement actually doesn't require to have that kind of a huge job. Say, without even though this paragraph, I think we can achieve the goal what we're looking for, protect our street. Because she come up very specifically, city engineer have to be looking to have to prove the way it backfills, so and so. So I feel like this is overburden to property owner, and we didn't get out nothing. But already she described, and your rules, to make sure it's job done right. So I think that this is the paragraph that's not necessary. Other than that, I support 100%. If we delete it, that's just F. F is the F.
Wait a minute, what?
It's the F. F is the problem.
I wanted to have, I wish this was a regular caucus, because I got a very disturbing telephone call from PSE&G, and they told me that this was gonna cost millions and millions and millions of dollars and hike up rate for all of PSE&G users. That's what they told me, millions and millions and millions of dollars. So my question is, if we're going to implement a process that's gonna give us better streets, but it's gonna cost us higher rates, then in actuality, we're not really doing a good thing, in other words.
Let's point out, it's not the first municipality to put any sort of.
Correct.
Okay.
And correct.
Okay.
Driven Union City streets, and
And rates haven't gone
they
up.
like their streets, yeah.
Okay.
So, but
What's going on
if
over there?
this one paid by PSENG, end of the day, what they pick up the cost, will be homeowners, have to pay. But let's forget about PSENG, forget about them. But we just talk about individual property owner.
So can we go back to the point I was making earlier, which is if we amend this to say that there can be an exception process, then the engineer can use his judgment and people can apply for an exception. It takes care of the
Yeah,
problem.
But now
this is a
this-
second reading. It shouldn't be a second reading then. I got a better idea. Why don't we take the 40 million from the MUA, put it in a trust account, and let the MUA pay for all the water lines and have private houses? That is being realistic.
So,
I have questions about other stuff.
so,
Limited amount of time, Councilman? And we can continue this conversation in regular council as well.
all right, then we discuss it in council, okay?
Let's go to first reading. You can make public comments during the public hearing. Yeah. First reading ordinances, we'll start from the top.
Okay, can I ask? What is the difference between 3B and the resolution 10Q and? Oh, 3?
We're just gonna start from the top on all first readings.
3A, we're moving senior affairs to the Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay?
B is transferring city-owned property at 362 Summit Avenue within the Journal Square redevelopment area to the redevelopment agency.
Yeah.
Okay, your question?
Now, your question is, there's a license agreement.
Wait, Councilperson Osborne's question, we're on.
Yeah,
Is this the one we just moved like a year ago?
Yes.
yes.
We're putting it back. It didn't work out. Okay. All right.
When we say that it's wrong, what's actually, but it's okay, don't worry about it. It's gone. We say we're not gonna work it out, we predicted it. 3B, what is between different, the 3B, when I read the ordinance 3B and resolution 10Q, 10R? It all sounds like a similar, I feel like, so would you?
No. B, if it relates to anything, Councilman, it relates to 10T. 10Q and 10R are month-to-month leases for the hub. 10B deals with 362 Summit Avenue.
Yes, I can.
So it's T, B and T are related.
Yes, so B and
B is a license agreement for the city-owned property until it is transferred over. We're giving them a license agreement until we transfer the property over.
Okay, so we're not
By
transferring
ordinance.
yet, right?
Not yet, by ordinance, but you're giving them a license agreement.
But we passed the ordinance or resolution last time. We give to convey to these from the city of Jersey City to redevelopment agency. What is different than that one and this one?
What is the difference between what we passed previously?
But the deed notice and,
That was just for the deed notice. Actually,
Yes.
wasn't just the perfect time.
great.
That was just the deed notice to allow them to deal with the deed restriction. There's a deed restriction on the property, from the DEP. And so because they do not have title to the property and they do not have, an interest in the property at the present time, the developer needed us to grant them that approval to accept the deed restriction so that they can begin to deal with the DEP to deal with the deed restriction. Okay? This license agreement allows them on the property to do some surveying and look at the property in hopes that we'll be able to sell them the property very shortly. So the transfer, which is, I believe, in an ordinance, and Franklin's also here as well, just step in at any time, Franklin, if I'm saying anything wrong. The transfer has to be done by ordinance, so that's 2 readings. But we wanted to do this license agreement this evening as well, so at least to allow them on the property, so we can keep the ball moving forward. You know, they do not take ownership of the property until the transfer is done by ordinance. And so nothing is a done deal until it's done, and that's why, but we're just trying to do it step by step and give everybody every opportunity to talk about it, and that's how we're doing it.
What is the resolution? What was it?
10T.
Yes.
And use the license agreement to grant them temporary access.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
3C.
These are 3D?
3C and 3D. Their ordinances, if introduced, will be heard on February 25th because they have to be approved by the local finance board first, but they're ordinances that'll save us money. We're refunding 2 qualified school bonds and general improvement bonds, and we're going to have a net savings of $1 million plus. We'll give you the exact figure, but it's beyond $1 million we'll be saving. E, we're canceling and reimbursing taxes paid by the Margaret Anna Cusack Care Center at 251 Baldwin Avenue. F is an ordinance vacating a portion of West Street in accordance with the stipulation of settlement dated July 25th, 2012, and pursuant to the Journal Square 2060 redevelopment plan.
Councilman Bojano?
Yeah, I'd like this pulled. I don't want to see them get this. I'd like the city, is Farrell here? No.
Jeremy just stepped out.
Yeah, well, I think the city should go back to court. You voted against it, Bravado. Steve Fulop voted against it, and so did Dave Donnelly vote against it at that time, and somebody else.
3F.
3F, we're talking about
West
3F.
Street, yeah.
This is wrong. A 42-story building does not belong in back of 1 and 2 family houses. It'll overshadow half the neighborhood, and half the neighborhood will be moving out of this city after next year.
We
Believe me.
have Jeff Langer here.
So I think you're all fairly familiar with what transpired. Robin Hood, which is the owner of that parking lot that kind of surrounds the Summit House up on Summit Avenue, they had filed suit against the city when the redevelopment plan was enacted. The city came to a settlement with Robin Hood with various stipulations, one of which was to amend the redevelopment plan to permit the 42 stories. That was done. The second was to vacate this portion of the street. If F is approved, that would end the city's requirements under that stipulation. The final one is Robin Hood granting about 0.8 acres of land to the city for a park. And then that would complete the stipulation of settlement. And then presumably, my understanding is that Robin Hood has a deal to sell the property to HAP, HAP. I'm not quite sure what that stands for, but they had some stuff on their website with some renderings of the 42-story tower.
0.8 acres, of course, the taxpayers about $3 or4 million. It's all rock, it's overlooking the train tracks, so they're gonna have to put up a high fence, they're gonna have to dig it out. It is totally ridiculous what
Okay,
they're
but,
doing.
wait, yeah, from my understanding, this is a settlement that was already agreed upon. Which means, even if we table this, this has to happen because that was a part of the documents and the settlement agreement, is that correct? I mean, I'm trying to make sure that that's
Defer
correct.
to the Corporation Counsel on that question. I'm not entirely sure what our legal obligations are to fulfill our settlement.
If we do not agree with this, that we're not abiding by a legal settlement that we're supposed to do. In other words, if there's a legal settlement saying that we need to let this happen, that happen, that happen, then whether we like it or not, the legal settlement says we have to do that. So that's what my question is. Is this a legal settlement? And if it is, then there's no question. It's a legal settlement. That means we have to vote on it.
Let me ask you about the 42, that's what Rich is concerned, 42-unit tower, right?
42-story tower.
Is that, has nothing to do with
No,
that
that
as
was
of yet?
the
That'd be something different.
Redevelopment plan was already amended to permit the 42 stories, but that's part of this whole stipulation of settlement where we have to do a couple of different things, one of which was amend the redevelopment plan, which is done. This is the other piece, which is to grant a portion of West Street. Then we get back land for a park, and then the deal is done, and they have, they're fully vested in the 42-story zoning. I'd like for the Corporation Counsel, however, to answer the question as to what our legal obligation is.
Let's be honest. This was because the business administrator sold us out, as far as I'm concerned, and the Corporation Council didn't want to go to court. The city should have gone to court and they would have won, and the redevelopment plan never would have been changed. It's a
Decision
shame.
of the prior administration not to go to court and to settle that lawsuit.
Legal settlement, oh, yes it is, yes it is, it's a legal settlement.
They settled. That's it, they settled.
Well, there's a settlement agreement. I'm not sure, and I really, you do want to,
Why is it 2.5?
Go ahead.
Councilman Juicy.
I know the corporate counsel isn't here, and there might be another legal question. Why did it take 2.5 years for the agreement?
Why did you take what?
It's 2.5 years. The agreement, if I read that correctly, is from June 25th of 2012.
It sounds about right.
Yeah.
I was on the council at that time. I voted against it.
Yeah, I know. I'm just wondering why it took 2.5 years to get to this table.
Yeah. Well, why did you take, I don't know.
there was about maybe 4 or 5 months to amend the redevelopment plan. They originally came in with a street vacation ordinance, which the planning division rejected. They then came back with another one. It's been a slow process, fulfilling the terms of the settlement.
42-story building does not belong east of Summit Avenue into that area there. It's totally ridiculous what happened under the last administration, all right? As I said, Fulop and you voted against it. I think Dave Donnelly voted against it. And the reason I'm sitting here is because our councilwoman said yes when we thought she was saying no. And that's when I decided to run for office, right, Rolando?
Who was your
I
counsel?
don't know when.
Lydia
What
Lopez.
prompted your decision? I know you
She said she was the final vote. And if she had said no, this never would have happened.
Yeah, but we're not in Lydia Lopez's era now,
Oh,
we're
here
in
it
this era.
Okay.
All right.
Here's my
We're in
question.
question.
My question to F, Jeremy, is that it says that this is a settlement that the city. Okay. Explain it, Council President.
Yeah. So is this a legally required or mandated action for us to take as part of the settlement agreement with, who is this?
Or I guess, or do we have the option of not fulfilling the stipulation of settlement and going back to court to litigate the Robin Hood?
No, so this is a settlement that's in effect, so if we were not to if we were not to comply with the settlement terms, we would end up back in court under a motion to enforce the settlement agreement. It would be similar to a breach of contract type scenario.
But we still get the motion to enforce. In other
We get a
words,
motion to enforce,
yeah.
we would argue why we're not doing it.
We have to do this. In other words, legally, we have to approve this because we've already agreed.
The right thing to do is to follow the stipulation of settlement. You know,
So that's exactly what we'd like or not.
We're not gonna go to court. Let's just go to court, what we should have done 2 years ago, and it should have been done properly.
certainly, Councilman, I serve it's instruction, so if you want to not abide by the terms, then we can do that. All I can tell you is that that will create exposure for us down the line. Maybe we'll be able to make our case to the court, justifying why we're not going to follow through on that. But after all the resources and all the time and all the money that's been spent trying to comply with the order, then we may be in a position where we're not in compliance with the settlement, and we'll end up having to pay the full damages, even though we've already given them so much.
Is this something that maybe we should talk about in closed session, or if we wanted to ask really detailed questions?
Can, but it's not really necessary because it was really done by another body before you guys, and it's kind of done. And what we're talking about is trying to undo it. And we don't really need to get into a lengthy conversation about the underlying merits to understand that undoing it is going to be costly and not productive.
Why don't we pull it, sit down, and talk about it further? And if we have to, maybe we go to some outside lawyers like we usually do.
We don't usually go outside lawyers at all.
So there's a request for the administration to pull it. That's the request from Councilman Bojano.
I mean, we could certainly talk about it some more if you want and revisit it, but I would tell you that
The end result is that.
we're under an order. We're supposed to comply with the order.
This ordinance, if it's introduced, won't be advertised for the next meeting. It will be advertised for the February 25th meeting. It has to be advertised at least 10 days before the public hearing, and the attorney would have to send out notices to all not our attorney, their attorney would have to send out notices to all the affected property owners within 200 feet. So this wouldn't happen, this wouldn't be approved until February 25th at the earliest.
I mean, let's pull it and then give the people that live on that block in that area, you got a judge living on that block, you have other prominent people living on that block, and they're all against this. I mean, you know, it's wrong.
Kind of agreed to this in the settlement, so, you know, those issues should have been addressed at that time. There's not much we can do.
It was addressed very well at that time. And as I said, the Corporation Council and the business administrator, as far as I'm concerned, never should have done what they did.
Okay, I'm clear.
Okay.
3G.
The 5-year tax exemption for a property at 372 Pacific Avenue. Okay,
Any resolutions?
Can I go through all the resolutions?
we have Acting Director Mark Redfield here. What do you hear from Mark?
There's 2 resolutions.
Okay.
I don't know that,
Welcome, Director Redfield.
yeah.
Your inaugural meeting?
Is this your first meeting? My first meeting. Thank you, thank you. About your placards for your car?
Things for the Wall of Fame, the name and the plaques that go underneath the pictures?
I don't think I've gotten any request on those plaques.
Is this for Lombardi doors?
Yes,
For Dunkin' Hardware and Lombardi doors?
yes, it is.
I think we could have saved you some time.
Okay, which 2 items?
2 items are Z and Z1, contract with Dunkin' Hardware for small tools and Lombardi door sales for repair and maintenance of motorized overhead doors. These are things we do every year.
Nah.
Yes. Any questions from anyone? I'm sorry.
Sorry to keep you, Mark.
I'm glad to be here.
Good job.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We have Director Gandula here.
Director Gandula, comments?
Oh, by the way, council members, Resolution P, amending the CSBG grant is going to be pulled. We don't have an encumbrancy on that. So P is going to be withdrawn. 10P will be withdrawn. So you're here for O, a grant agreement between the city and DCA for funding under the Community Services Block Grant.
Yes. So ideally, if my first caucus meeting, we talked about the tranches and the stages of us going into contract with DCA, and that was, can you hear me? 10-0. 10-0? Okay. So ideally, I think the question at hand that was presented is that the accepting of the dollars. So what's going to be accepted at this point is $280,522.22. So ideally, what that means is our clients or our subgrantees can get their dollars and their funding. So I'm here to answer any questions you guys may have regarding to that.
So this is awarding?
It's correct. So if you remember back in October when I was here, I identified what the stages were. Right here.
Grantees?
This is the previous resolution.
10-0?
I have the resolution from October 8th that indicates. Okay.
This is just to accept the grant.
That's it.
This is just to accept the grant. It
Right.
doesn't,
Say who the awardees are. Not until we accept the grant, she can't.
Designate how much they're gonna
Right,
get
right.
until
This is
after
a
we accept the
designated
money.
grant. There'll be another resolution to effectuate,
Correct.
purposes of the resolution.
That's it?
Next.
Who else we have?
Yeah.
Who's 10P? I don't understand this here.
It's being withdrawn,
10P is being withdrawn?
right?
Okay.
We were just, that would have taken money and just
What about
moved it
10R?
over. 10R,
Yeah. Because I
That's-
thought we would have, the WIC was
it's
at.
Q and R. WIC and Commerce.
Right.
I know, P, excuse me, it's not P that's being withdrawn. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry. The word commerce is in the wrong part. Commerce should be down in R. That's what threw me. I'm so sorry.
Who's being, 10R is not being withdrawn?
No, R is not being withdrawn.
Because I thought we were paying lease for the trailers for WIC.
go. Folks,
No, I don't believe.
Did you have a
the-
question about-
The trailers are located at WIC. They're located at the hub.
Candace?
Yeah, I was curious why month to month?
We're on 10R?
No, thank you.
Q.
Q and
Both
Yeah,
of them,
right, both,
both
yeah.
of them are month to month.
Moving,
Okay, so you don't have enough certainty on around the date to, I get it. It's just like it's just extending.
Yeah, Steve Miller was here, I didn't get the date from him, but we're only doing a month to month because they're gonna be relocating.
I mean, when they say relocate, to
Right.
where, locate to where?
I believe it's gonna be Summit Avenue.
Wait a minute. The WIC was, based on this, the WIC is supposed to be.
Let me grab it.
Right.
Because this is his
This is getting
So you're
confused
talking
here.
about 10R?
Right, I'm
So
talking
we-
about 10R.
Yeah, we're making space available to move WIC.
To the health campus.
Summit Avenue.
At Summit Avenue, right.
I thought they were there the first time.
No, we didn't move them over at the time. No, because we were waiting for approvals, because yeah, all that space has to be approved and whatever. So we got that list in, we made whatever had to be, changes had to be made, and now everything's up and running, so they're gonna move over. That's right.
Okay, and then 10Q is moving to where? Commerce is going where? Where's Commerce's home?
Place for Commerce to go, but we expect to move them soon, that's why we changed this to ordinance.
Where are they going?
We don't have a place.
We don't have a place for them yet, we're looking.
Guys, just one at a time. Yes, so we don't have a place, what I'm hearing is we don't have a place for Commerce to go yet. We're going month to month so we can have the flexibility of moving them as soon as we have a place designated, as opposed to tying into a long-term lease and not being able to move them out. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Any other questions on Q or R? Thank you. You're back up, Nami. Okay.
We pay rent to JCRA, right?
Yes.
Now, JCRA is a autonomous agency, I guess, right?
Yes.
Now, that's why I like to ask you the, Jeremy. when we transfer 320 Summit Avenue, that land owned by City of Jersey City, when we convey our deed to JCRA, what kind of dollar we get from the receipt of JCRA?
You're asking too many questions. You have to know the answer, right? How much did we pay?
No. I don't know.
You asked about Summit.
You're really asking about is in the hub, when we transferred title over to JCRA of the hub, how much money did we get? That's what you're asking. And the answer to that question is the hub is a city asset that's debt laden. And in fact, the debt on the property outweighs the value of it. So the rent that's paid in the hub goes to service that debt. And we have been working tirelessly to restructure that package, a deal you've many times tried to circumvent because you don't really understand. But the reality is that the debt load on that property is so severe, we have to do something to refinance it so that it's no longer a burden to the city. Okay?
We have one more.
Okay.
Noemi. Okay, let's take her on, and then you can bring up 10I in the meeting.
My resolution is 10Z3. This resolution is to award a professional engineering services contract to T&M Associates so that they can perform a traffic impact study of the Lackawanna Station area. This is an area that consists of 2 existing redevelopment plans, Jersey Avenue Light Rail and Jersey Avenue Park redevelopment plans. So T&M Associates will basically look at the impacts to the traffic under 2 scenarios, one being the build-out of existing zoning under the 2 redevelopment plans, and the second scenario being a proposed bonus system, which would allow developers to pay into a fund which would pay for a new light rail station at 18th Street. So that would allow some extra units, but you would get a light rail station. So the traffic impact, I'm sorry? And other improvements, correct. And that's effectively the study.
We'll go into the council. Yeah, can we call this?
To adjourn at 6:05.
Got me in there?
Yes. Are you, motion by Councilperson Coleman, seconded by? Rivera, to adjourn at 6:06. I'll see you outside in a little while. Thank you.